Hello everyone and welcome to Hi everyone and welcome to ADHD Dyslexia live show. I think I started a little bit earlier before the actual intro. Do pardon me there. This is a live show, so anything can happen. One thing I can say is that I feel really excited to be here today. Today's live show is absolutely phenomenal. I use this word every single week, but today's one's really close to my heart. And I'll tell you why it's close to my heart, because it's dyslexia and ADHD. Now, when I actually looked at the title of the show, I thought it actually should have been the other way around, because our guest that we've got this evening, she has ADHD, more dominant on the ADHD side of things, and then dyslexia as well. So I just thought it was really interesting to speak to our amazing guest, who I will introduce in a minute. Before I do that, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Elizabeth Tecci. I'm the CEO and the founder of Aspire to Inspire Dyslexia CIC. We are based in London. I was going to say our office, but obviously because of lockdowns and things, we are working remotely, and our live show is from my front room, as everybody else has been working from their front room for the last 16 months. This evening, I have an amazing lady with me. She's the founder of an organization called ADHD Babes. I love the name of the organization, absolutely phenomenal. Vivienne Isebor is, she does have dyslexia and ADHD, but today's live show, we will be focusing a lot more on the ADHD side of things, and then she will tell us a bit more about how it all interlinks. So you could have dyslexia, ADHD, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, or the dysys in one go. But sometimes you find that you're dominant in one than the other. Now, my dyslexia is severe than maybe some of my other conditions that I have. So I just want to say hello to everybody and welcome to our live show. This live show is sponsored by Lambeth Black Thrive, or shall I say the other way around, Black Thrive Lambeth. And they are sponsoring this live show. And I want to bring my guest on now. Vivienne, welcome to ADHD Dyslexia live show. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I am so excited to have you on this show today.
Thank you.
We have so many emails, phone calls, inquiries about ADHD and dyslexia. The dyslexia side of things, I'm like, okay, this is what you do. The ADHD side of things, like, you know what? I need to refer you to someone else because that's not my expertise. But I do understand they're all interlinked, don't they? And one could have ADHD and dyslexia like yourself.
Exactly, yeah.
I think today's show, I'm really interested to find a lot more about ADHD, because there's not, as much as there's so much information out there, because there is, you can read about ADHD. And then you think, right, okay, I'm ready for help. Where'd you go? And people say, go to the NHS. Some people say pay private. Some people parents are banging their head against brick wall because we don't know where to go for this particular, the support that we need. Now, before we start, I want to read a little bit about you, because your line of work, it just blows me away, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
Vivienne is a trainee clinical associate in psychology and founder of ADHD Babes, the first support group for Black women and Black non-binary people with ADHD. Now, it's really like, this is why I love the work you do, Vivienne. ADHD in women is like, it's not that easy to pick up as such. We know boys, lots of boys, or many boys have got ADHD and they can get diagnosed very quickly. Now, when it comes to women, it's like, I don't know. I don't have the stats, but you might be able to tell me. Right. And then, of course, being Black, it's also a different story. So Black dyslexic ADHD. Today's show will be phenomenal. I did say that when we first started, because we want to touch up on all those areas. Now, since being diagnosed in her early 20s, with ADHD and living with mental health difficulties, Vivienne has run awareness sessions and an advocate on platforms such as BBC, Mental Health Today, and Mind. She's also a performing artist and organizes events and creative workshops with special focus on Black British history. Amazing. Welcome to A26 Live Show.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel all right.
Wonderful. Wonderful. There may be loads of questions coming in, because that's where on live People will be saying hello. People will be dropping comments. People want to find
Yeah.
out a lot more. You will be busy, Vivienne. Trust me. You'll be so busy. You'll be like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. I'm ready.
Awesome. That's so awesome. You're such an inspiration to me because,
Thank
you know,
you.
so young and you're really forefront and you're speaking about this. You're bringing awareness and you're saying to the Black community, get the help you need or else
Yeah.
you're stuck,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
And we
Wonderful.
deserve the
Now,
help as well. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
mm.
Now, tell our viewers a bit about yourself and why
Mm.
you are so passionate to bring change.
So I guess, yeah, besides my bio, I was diagnosed quite late. So I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was in my second year of university. So I would have been like 20 or so. And then with the ADHD, it was even later. I was diagnosed, I think, 23 or 24. And it was by accident. So when I like finally got the diagnosis and, you know, spoke to, like, I was with somebody at the time and they were like really into research and finding out, you know, what does it mean? How does it impact me and our relationship? Kind of learning over the years how much it's impacted so many different elements of my life. And that if I had known earlier, actually, I would have had, you know, I could have avoided a lot of things. There's a lot of relationships that I could have, you know, spared and I could have reconciled with. Yeah, it just feels like there was a lot of struggle there that didn't necessarily have to happen. So I think from that, it's kind of, you know, number one, like wanting a space where people who look like me and have had similar experiences as like a Black British person can kind of relate and feel safe and be able to like understand and stand in like solidarity with each other. But then also catching people before it's too late, or it's never too late, but catching people before they have to go through struggle that they don't need to, and being able to identify and give people the tools so that they can access a life that they deserve. Because a lot of the time it's just giving people the right access, giving people accommodations. So for me, yeah, I don't want people to struggle. They don't have to, they shouldn't have to. And you know, it is quite a fault of society to not be accommodating of difference and neurodiversity. So being able to like flip that on its head and say, actually, like we have the ability to live our lives to a high quality. We just need the right tools. So yeah, really trying to create that space where we can thrive. Yeah, and not have to suffer, because why? Why should we suffer? Like it's not by force.
Right.
So
Now, it's really interesting you say that, but just before we dive into the show, because I'm so excited, I don't know about you, but I'm really, really excited.
yeah.
So I'm going to chill and sit back. I've got my bottle of water next to me, and we're just going to have a conversation today about these two conditions that can hinder you which other way around. But before we start that, I just want to say hello to Jill, who came and said hello very quickly. So all our viewers that have joined us. So Jill, hello, Jill. Thank you for joining us. Hello there, Jill. It's amazing to know you for so many years. And Jill always joins our show, and
oh,
you
lovely.
know, she's such an amazing lady. I just want to say hello to Marcia. Marcia did kind of say hello there. Yeah, she's got a little hand up. Marcia, you probably have met on LinkedIn. Absolutely phenomenal. She did some great work with awareness of dyslexia and autism, ADHD, all sorts of different conditions. Trauma or struggle, easily diagnosed, is really vital, she said. You know, that's some of the messages put on there. Now, there's another lady who dropped a message on there, and I think it's really important. She did say, Eve Baker, what is it and how does it manifest itself? I can't read today. Not surprised I can't read.
All right.
I've had a really hectic day. And also, she's also said, what does ADHD stand for? Not everyone will know, and that's very true. What does it stand for?
So I even forget. So I always have to say it slowly. So ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which, yeah, it doesn't necessarily account for the whole condition, unfortunately. But like, yeah, that's what it stands for.
Okay. So attention deficit hyperactive disorder. I only know that because my son's got ADHD. That's why. But I thought, you know, because the floor is all yours today, I thought I'd give you the opportunity to explain. Now, tell me some of the symptoms of attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Tell me what's a typical day like? What are some of the things we should be looking out for?
So interestingly enough, this is why the name doesn't do it justice, is that actually there's three types. So you've got the inattentive type, which might be struggling to maintain concentration or attention. You might, you know, be really forgetful, but, you know, beyond just, oh, I forgot my keys today. It's like, you know, regular and things like losing your phone, losing your purse, losing your car keys. things like, in being in the middle of conversation and you find yourself zoning out, or, only catching the ends of sentences and then trying to jump back into the conversation. People who might struggle a lot in academia, like struggling in lectures and in classes, even in exam conditions. So yeah, very much about like how we sustain attention, and yeah, being able to like engage and like stay alert and on top of things. And then you've got the hyperactivity and impulsive kind of category, which is a lot more kind of, well, some people see it as more visible because it might be that someone fidgets a lot, or it might be that they talk really fast, or they interrupt a lot during conversation, or they could be really impulsive. So like they have what people say, like going from 0 to 100 really quick. Like they might have a temper, or they might get super emotional about something that other people are like, oh, well, I don't think it's that deep. And that might look like, getting loads of speeding tickets, or, getting into a lot of fights. A lot of people end up in the prison system. There's a really high percentage of people with ADHD within the prison system, which, again, goes to show like a failure on our side in society. And then there's combined, where you've got, a bit of both. So you might struggle with attention, but also, be really, really restless. And the restlessness might actually be internal. So it might be things like racing thoughts, really struggling to relax and to sit still. And rather than like fidget physically, it might be internally, it feels like you're on a motor, like you always feel like you need to be doing something, or, moving around, or onto the next event, one event to the next, on the phone, onto the next phone call. So yeah, there's those kind of three types, which the term ADHD doesn't necessarily account for. Which is why a lot of women are missed, because they might not have the typical, oh, look, they can't sit still, they're bouncing around the room, which is hyperactive. They might be inattentive. So people might see them as quiet, but actually, they're finding it difficult to sustain attention, and they've just gone off into their own world.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You've
so
just,
that's the kind of main, but there's an extensive list. Yeah.
I think you've just described me. Vivienne, all that you said is that it sounds like when I was younger, I'm not even kidding with you. You just literally, and I'm hang on a minute, that sounds like one of the things I used to do when I was young. And obviously when we talk about temper and things, as you grow older, you kind of just let things get by you. But otherwise, that sounds a little bit like me, what you just described there. But when I went for my diagnosis, they did dyslexia, dyspraxia, later on dyscalculia and visual. ADHD is something they never did. But you know what? I am so passionate to go back and get that assessment done, because it just, what you've just described sounds a little bit like me, and like you said, would I ever know about it? No, I wouldn't. Because I just thought, look, I don't finish off a task. I am very hyper, by the way. I'm quite surprised I can sit still for 45 minutes for our live shows. But it's what it is. So I hope that answers your question, Eve Baker. And if it doesn't, please do drop us another message again. And we will be able to support you or help you in the best way that we can. Now, Vivienne, what made you go for your assessment? What made you go? What was the turnaround point for you and thought, actually, I need help?
So for dyslexia, it was second year of uni, summer. Well, finished first year, going into second year. And I was working part-time for the National Autistic Society, and I was always late, just always late. And, it was not for lack of want or lack of trying. Like, no matter how much I tried, I was always running late, to the extent where I literally would get on the train and go in the wrong direction. So I remember being really late, showing up, and it was like a 2-to-1 type of support, where there'll be 2 staff members and we support one person. And I remember explaining to him that, look, I'm so sorry. I know this always happens, explaining that I'm always, getting lost. And he was like, do you know what? That sounds like me. I've got dyspraxia. So maybe you can get checked. I don't know what it's like for your university, but maybe they can check. So when I went back to uni, kind of called they got like a student support service and kind of let them know. So they were like, yeah, sure. They looked at my kind of first year track record, and I was really low on attendance. There's a whole module that I just completely missed. So they was like, yeah, we can see evidence for it. Did the assessment, and actually they ended up saying that, yeah, you've got dyspraxia, but you also have dyslexia as well. They didn't do the ADHD test at the time. But I do remember her mentioning that it might be worth looking at that in the future, but that just kind of went over my head. So I guess at that point, I wasn't expecting the dyslexia kind of thing. Like in my head, the dyspraxia made sense because sense of direction, like spatial awareness, balance, all that stuff. But I didn't realize that the way I was reading and my processing was a struggle because I just normalized it. I thought everybody was struggling in the same way. So yeah, that was a really big shocker, but it was really useful because I got extra time at uni. I got a student support worker. I got a free laptop with like new software and things like that. So that was all great. So finished uni, like, you know, thank God for that. Managed to get through, even though it was a year late. And then I went traveling, and it was like one of the most beautiful experiences that I've had. But at the same time, I really struggled with the social aspects of it. I was finding it really difficult to like manage my emotions. I was finding that I was really struggling without the routine. And yeah, there was a lot. Something just didn't feel right. I felt like I was out of place. So when I got back, I kind of went to my GP, explained, and also a lot of the things that I was experiencing were ticking with my understanding of autism. So I was thinking, oh, you know, the rigidity of routines, difficulty with social interactions. I was like, oh, do you know what? Maybe it's ASD. So I explained that to them. They referred me on to the ASD service, and I had a full assessment. And they were like, well, no, you don't have autism, but they do screening. And they said I scored really high for OCD and ADHD. So then they referred me on to the ADHD clinic, did my assessment, and it was over 2 sessions. You bring in a parent as well, and they kind of asked them a lot of questions. And by the end of it, yeah, they said I scored, you know, really high for inattentive, moderately high for hyperactive and impulsive. And yeah, kind of crossed the threshold for moderate ADHD. So it was quite a shock because I didn't know much about ADHD. Like my idea of it was, you know, a young boy in class who can't sit still, you know, and is jumping around the room. It didn't register at all. And then I guess from there, yeah, that was the journey to kind of figuring out what that meant for me. Yeah.
Wow. Now, if you hadn't gone to uni, none of this would have happened. And
Nope.
prior to going to uni to get the help, how was your typical day like prior to going to uni? Let's go back to secondary school, where you're always getting into fights and arguments and and missing classes and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I did miss quite a few classes. Yeah, I did miss quite a few classes. I was really lucky to actually do well by GCSEs because by like year 9 and 10, I just was finding it really difficult to sit in class. I'd literally, like, the whole daydreaming thing was a real thing for me. Like, I could literally just sit and watch the clouds pass, and that was entertainment enough for me. The fights, yeah, I think, yeah, I did, you know, struggle with my temper a little bit. And again, now I understand that as emotional regulation, you know, finding it hard to, like, if I'm here and something happens that, you know, feels out of my control, it just completely spikes, and there's not really like a slow gradient where I can pull myself back quite easily. So there was a lot of that, a lot of kind of arguments and shouting. Yeah, but again, that was kind of just put in with my personality, where it's like, oh, you know, that's just the way she is. She's got a bit of a temper, you know, she doesn't concentrate in class, she doesn't apply herself, you know, she's got a lot more potential if she just, you know, would concentrate and commit. So yeah, it just became part of my personality. But luckily I got through GCSEs, but it was really A-levels where the lack of structure and kind of support from the actual education system meant that I struggled a lot more. Yeah, so I did a lot worse in my A-levels because of that.
Lovely. So then you came home and you said, Mummy and Daddy, I've got something to tell you. And you're from an African parenting background, is that right? Or not? Are you from?
Yeah, I'm from Nigeria, but I didn't tell them. Yeah.
You didn't. Yeah.
No,
is it the first time they're finding out on live show? No.
Well, my dad found out through LinkedIn because I've been posting stuff. So he actually messaged me earlier this year and was like, oh, you know, well done for what you're doing, and he's going to read into it more. So I was like, oh God, that's good. That's really good to hear. And I haven't actually had the conversation with my mum to say, oh, you know, by the way, I have ADHD. I didn't really disclose in that way. It just didn't feel, I didn't feel that comfortable to do so. Yeah.
So obviously your mum knows about your condition moving forward.
So.
Otherwise she'll find out live.
Yeah.
She's just gonna find out when she watched this video. Why is it that you never had that conversation with her? What do you think her perception would have been of you know, if you said, would she have the understanding, or what would you think? Would she have the understanding, or you think sometimes, because I know up till now, my mum still says to me, you know, this dyslexia thing, she still doesn't get it, by the way. You know, sometimes I'm with her and I'll ask her, how do you spell something? And she goes, look, you've got a degree, you can't spell. You know, she's always asking, I can't spell to save my life, help. But, you know, just going back on that, how do you think, you know, okay, let me phrase the question slightly different. If there is any parent watching right now, what would you be your advice to them for as a Black young girl with ADHD? What would be your advice to them if their child exhibiting signs of ADHD? What's your advice to them? What would you say?
I would say, look, I think there's like it felt like the things that I was struggling with were seen as like not trying hard enough. So there wasn't a comfort there to express that this is a difficulty and actually this is something that I have, because I didn't feel like that would be received in the way where it's like, oh, you know, this is where we need to support you. So I think, you know, give your child the space to ask for help, you know, like allow them to be vulnerable, because there was a lot of pressure growing up where it's like, you know, you need to work twice as hard as everybody else, you know, you need to succeed. And obviously I get it, you know, like my parents are first generation, so they've moved from Nigeria to come here, you know, to build like a new life for us. So, you know, they want us to do well, but within that, you know, push and that determination, there wasn't space for vulnerability, and space to say, look, I'm struggling, I need help. So I think, like be open to that idea that your child might need extra support, and rather than kind of dismissing it or seeing it as, oh, you know, you need to just work harder, or, you know, we need to pray about it, or, you know, these kind of just take the person as they are coming to you, like see them as they are, because that's okay. It doesn't mean that they can't succeed. It doesn't mean that, you know, the world is ending. It just means that they need something different to what somebody else might need. So just meet them where they are with compassion.
Wow. So, right. Okay. I'm like I said, today's show is so phenomenal. And I think I'm so excited that I don't even want the show to ever end. I know we just started. So let's get into it. Let's just have a look at some of the comments that our viewers have put there. So we have Katia, who said, my son was tested 3 times for ADHD through NHS. Nothing happened. Vivienne, help us out on this one. The last time he was referred to do counselling. Do we do counselling to get over this ADHD? What should we do? How can we get help? Is what Katia is asking.
So
what was the process for you?
So I got the diagnosis, and then you're referred. So I was under the clinic's care. So I would see my psychiatrist every month or so, and they were testing me on a lot of different medications to see if that would work for me. But I wasn't very keen on medication. I was asking for talking therapy, so for CBT. But the psychiatrist I had was very, very adamant. Actually, now I'm thinking of it, he was being a bit unfair, but he was saying that I couldn't access the CBT until I tried all the medications first. So I got to the point where I was just, you know, going in and out of the medication. Some of them were giving me really bad side effects. It just wasn't working for me. So obviously because of that, I wasn't managing my time well. I would miss appointments or I'd be late. And I think I missed about 3 appointments and they ended up just discharging me. So in the end, I didn't get any real help from them. And what they always say at the bottom of like the letters is, you know, recommend lifestyle changes such as regular exercise, healthy diet, you know, good sleep, self-help groups, and I think even mindfulness and meditation they always recommended, but I didn't necessarily get that help from them. So what it did mean for me is going out and trying to find that help for myself. And the partner I was with at the time did loads of research, so they were reading, you know, like massages can be really helpful, doing, you know, regular exercise, things like yoga, practicing meditation, and then finding a support group where you can find people who understand and relate to the experience. It can also get a sense of like, you know, you're not alone, but also get advice and tools. So that was kind of where ADHD Babes kind of grew from. But in terms of like getting support, I mean, it's really difficult. It would be good to know whether they're saying they've done the assessment 3 times and said that he doesn't have ADHD, if that's what their conclusion is. Because if that's the case, that's really difficult because you can ask for a second opinion, but if they've done it 3 times, I don't know if they would do it again.
I think in this case they haven't even done the assessment for him. Now I know Katia, and I know her son very well. He's a talented musician, an amazing musician, and he just needs he needs to be assessed and get all this sort of once you're assessed, you and I know once you've had your dyslexia or ADHD assessment, the world's your oyster. Doors open. You know you're flying with what you need because the help is there for you. But I think in Katia's case, he hasn't even got to the assessment stage, and she is actually tearing her hair out at the moment. But I did rest assure her that there is help out there, and of course after the show or tomorrow sometime I will contact her and maybe speak to her how best she can, because there is help out there. It's just finding it.
Exactly.
I know for the case of my son, I had to in the end up with solicitors had to fight on the behalf of the school for my son to get the help he needed. No one needs to go through that, to be honest with you.
It's not fair.
But I know you've done it, and I know loads of people that have done it, and I'm sure there are ways about it. And Katia will be in touch after the show to see how best we can help. So we've got Sharon Dixon, who says, for ADHD, the first point of call is usually your GP. I think the lady who's put the message up before, Katia, she has actually done all that. It's been a long battle for her, backwards and forward and backwards and forward. I think she's got to a point where she's thinking, actually, I can't go back to the GP because the GP ain't helping me with anything. I know when I spoke to my GP, she did say there's 18 months waiting list if you're referred to, I think she said Moseley Hospital or whatever the word is. I'm not too sure. And then you've got another 12 months to wait. So I then decided, well, maybe I may have to go private to pay for it, in the end. Not everybody can afford that, to be honest with you. Yeah. I'm just going to read a few of the messages, then we'll carry on with the show. So Inni says, I'm on the NHS waiting list to be assessed. Right. It's a long process. I don't want the medication side of managing ADHD. I hope they'll listen. This is the problem we're having. I think a lot of the messages are quite the same. It's one of the, it's like a secret kept somewhere. You can't get far. You get to a certain point, and then you give up, and then so forth. But like Katia just agreed with the last message that just came in. There's got to be an easier way of people getting the help they need. Now, let me just ask a question very quickly, Vivienne. If we don't seek help and go for the help we need, what could be a long-term effect of having I know having dyslexia, what it did to me, but we're speaking today on dyslexia and ADHD. So one, on the dyslexia side of things, I'll give you time to answer that. And then two, on the ADHD side of things.
So, I guess with the dyslexia, I know definitely if I hadn't got the help in second year, I don't know how likely it is that I would have finished uni. Because even to get to that second year, there were some people in my course that literally carried me through. They would check, if I wasn't in lecture, or they tell me, we've got a deadline on XYZ day. So I wouldn't have made it for academia. And there was a lot of people within our support group that talk about how difficult university was for them. And a lot of them did drop out between first and sometimes even third year because it was just too overwhelming. They weren't getting the support that they needed. I think it's often there's a lot of missed opportunities there, and then the blame is very internalized. So it's like, I'm just not good at academia, I'm going to go and do something else, when actually with the right help and support, you do have the intellect and the ability to engage with it, but it's just not having the right support in hand. So I think that's a really big thing there. And then with the ADHD, do you know what? Someone said it really well in one of the support groups, where it's like ADHD, when not supported, can be like a bulldozer, where it can literally just smash through every wall of your life, because it's not just, how you interact with education and work. It might make you really late to work. It might make you, it might make you forgetful, so you might miss meetings, XYZ, which are things that can be managed. But then even in your relationships, it can impact, how you remember someone's birthday, or, always being late to meetings and people feeling like you don't care. Or, the emotional regulation side, where you feel like, oh my God, someone says something that you don't like, and then you blow up and people are like, oh, why are you like that? It might push people away. And then rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria is a really big part of ADHD that I've been working through a lot, where, criticism or even perceived criticism feels really extreme. It makes us shut down. It feels, you can even feel it physically. And that experience can work quite harshly with relationships where you feel like, actually, I'm afraid of being rejected, so I'm going to pull back from people. Or if you are rejected, the way you react might make people feel like, oh my God, this is too much. So there's that element. And then just in terms of, having a life that you want, so not being able to concentrate on things or follow through on ideas that you have, all of these things can kind of impact your self-esteem, especially if people are constantly telling you, why are you always late? You never finish what you start. Why are you so emotional? Yeah, exactly. Marcy said, you're completely misunderstood. And that there's a song Misunderstood by Nina Simone, and I've always related to that song. And it's only now that I've kind of got around this stage where I've understood why I act the way I act. I'm like, oh my God, this is why, all these things were happening. But this, by then, you now need to start working on your self-esteem and kind of rebuilding that trust in yourself that actually there's nothing wrong with me. I just didn't have the tools and understanding of what was going on with me. So I think it's really underrated how much our self-esteem can be battered going through childhood, adolescence, adulthood, not understanding why you're failing at things that everybody else seems to be doing seamlessly. Like the fact that people could just get up in the morning, I'm like, huh? Like, you people could just get out of your bed just like that.
How did they do that? Yeah.
How did they do that? I'm literally there. I was setting alarm for 7:30. I've set for 7:40. I've set for even then, I'm still like, oh my God, because my executive functioning skills means that initiation of get out of bed is difficult. Like, it's not connecting. But for the longest time, I'm just like, you're so lazy. Why can't you just get out of bed? But I'm not lazy, because once I'm up, I can be active. So just, reframing our narrative and how we've engaged with the world can do a great deal of difference. But we've still had to live a whole life where we feel like we're the problem. And I think that is probably one of the biggest difficulties, not to mention, people who end up in the prison system or end up long-term unemployed, being disillusionized from society in general. There's so many different things, but yeah, it can be really difficult.
Thank you so much for that, Vivienne. But I just want to go to our viewers, because without the viewers, there's no show. And there's some amazing comments there. And I just really want to pick up on, there's a lady, I think the title is Something We See, or she just dropped a message on there. So let our producers show us some of the questions that, right. So something worth seeing. You see, I said something completely different to that. Something worth seeing. Being in the right environment is so important. I think we both agree with that. There's another one from Alex Mensa. Marcia said, there we go, Alex. So Alex said, thank you to Sharon. Sharon, thank you so much for being watching our show today. And thank you for raising awareness. The conversation needs to be kept going in African and ethnic minority groups. I couldn't agree more, honestly. I think a lot of the time, and I'm going to be 100% honest with you, when my son was diagnosed with before he was diagnosed with ADHD, I didn't understand the condition. So I think a lot of African households, it's like, this child is naughty. It's what we normally tend to say. Why are you so naughty? Why are you so hyper? Why can't you sit still? And then once he was diagnosed, it was right, okay, now I get it. I understand it all now. And you can give them the help, the support they need. I think it's really important that conversation carries on around the dining table about dyslexia and ADHD.
Exactly.
To keep that conversation going. Thank you, Alex, for that comment there. And I think there was some more questions coming in. If there is, please. Right. So Ines says, results, total burnout and breakdown. I know firsthand from the possible triple combo. Right. Diagnosed with dyslexia and dyspraxia 18 years apart. Oh, my goodness. This is what happens. I mean, I had my diagnosis of dyslexia in 2001. And then I thought something was wrong with my mathematical sort of world. And then I went and had a dyscalculia assessment about 18 or 19 years later. I was so angry. I was like, why couldn't they pick that up at the time,
Yeah.
But it was so far apart. And I actually think that when they do the assessment, I know the education psychologists will look at everything. Now, we're talking about loads and loads of thousands of pounds if you're paying privately. If schools are doing it for you, great. But I know with our dyslexia assessors, they obviously can't do all of it. So you do your dyslexia and your dyspraxia, dyscalculia, and then later on the ADHD. I just wish they did everything at the same time for me, but that wasn't the case. She's on a waiting list. She said, now waiting on the ADHD diagnosis waiting list, right? So we're looking at 18 months to more than that. It is very difficult. And I wish I could wave a magic wand and, get people seen. There must be a way. There's got to be a way of how people can be seen sooner. But I guess because it's such a long waiting list, is that because of COVID, do you reckon? Do you think because of the pandemic, there's that backlog, or in general, is that how it is?
I think in general it was already getting longer. People were already having to wait, up to a year at times, and COVID has just made it worse. So there's a period where they closed completely during, the lockdown. So now there's a backlog of people who had been referred over that period of time that they're trying to catch up to while new people are coming in. So the list is getting longer, and their resources haven't improved to match the demand. So yeah, that's a big difficulty. And also during the lockdown, a lot of people became more aware of their difficulties, because sometimes what happens is you cope, you just manage, or you don't manage. But for the people who do manage, they find all these coping mechanisms and all these different ways to just stay on top of, feeling restless and always losing things, forgetting things. But then being forced to stay inside, it completely highlights all of your difficulties, because you don't have those routines and all those support networks that were helping you navigate life. So a lot of people kind of realized, actually, I think there's something wrong here, like during that whole lockdown period. And I think the spread of information as well, there was a lot of stuff on social media that brought people's attention. Like we had more than 10 people in our group get diagnosed during that short period. So yeah, I think it all kind of meshed together. Yeah.
Right. So where can we go for help? Give us an example of where we can go for help. Where do we go to get help? I know GP's been mentioned. And I know when I spoke to you last time, I think you gave me some links. And again, I spoke to someone else who gave me the exact link that you gave me. So I thought, oh, actually, these two are exactly the same. So just for the sake of our viewers, where can one go for help? We know they've been to their GPs. We know that it's a long waiting list. What's the next step? What do we do?
Yeah. So besides GP, there is another route called the Right to Choose through Psychiatry UK. Where you can again go for your GP, but let them know that you would like to be diagnosed through Psychiatry UK. At the peak of their service, they were seeing people within 2 weeks, and people would have a full diagnosis within a month. But because of the lockdown and because a lot of information is now spread about them, their waiting list has also grown now as well. So some people have had to wait up to 2 months, but still 2 months is nothing compared to 18 months. So yeah, the difficulty is that sometimes GPs are a bit resistant. So we've had people in the group come back because, their GP has told them no. So we've encouraged people to, advocate for themselves, to prepare a list of their symptoms so they can really argue their case, because the GPs have to pay Psychiatry UK to do that assessment. So that's why they can sometimes be a bit resistant. So yeah, you can go through that route and it's a lot faster. The difficulty is that once you do get the diagnosis, you have to pay for the medication titration period, which is them trialing you on a medication and then trying to find the right dose. So during that period of time, you would have to pay privately for that medication. And then once they've set that level where they found the correct dose for you, they would send your case back to the GP, and then things would continue under your GP. So it is a lot faster, but there's a bit of cost there that you wouldn't have to pay if you waited on the GP waiting list. But yeah, like I said, their waiting time is a bit longer than it was before. There's also ADHD 60 who have similar processes. I don't know as much about them as Psychiatry UK, but yeah, some people in the group have also gone through ADHD 60, so that's another option. And then there's other spaces that they're not necessarily connected to the GP. Things like the ADHD Centre, for example, they also do diagnosis, and you can kind of speak to your GP beforehand and ask them if they're willing to do a shared care agreement, which is to say that once you do pay for your private diagnosis, will they accept your diagnosis being sent back to the GP so you can continue your care under that service? So you'd have to agree that beforehand so that you wouldn't have to continue paying privately. But that's, again, just more options. But if you're financially viable to do so, you can just stay private, pay for it privately, continue getting your meds done. Or if you don't want medication, just, get your diagnosis and then figure out kind of lifestyle changes that you might want to put in, or go into talking therapy, go into CBT. Psychoeducation is really good as well, just learning about how ADHD affects us and things we can put in place. So yeah, those are the kind of main ways at the moment that I know of.
Wonderful. Now, a question just come in. PT says, what do you think is the best way to support ADHD, and what was the best support you received?
The best support I received. I'm going to be biased, but yeah, the best support I think I received is from ADHD babes, because you get a sense of, like, I don't know, when you've been undiagnosed for the majority of your life, you feel like there's something wrong with you. So hearing other people talk about their lives, and it is the complete parallel of my life, you just suddenly, you don't feel alone. It just, releases so much tension and so much, it's like a weight that you were carrying all this time. You didn't even realize you were carrying it. And then there's also all these tips, because I've got my personal tips, but the other person has their own. So just the exchange of like managing tips and tools I've found really helpful. Other than that, though, managing your ADHD will always be like personal to the person, because everyone's ADHD manifests differently. So for me, a lot of my difficulties was emotional regulation, like my temper, my anger, managing like my mood. So I've done a lot of things to try and sustain my mood. So I do like daily meditation. I do try and exercise regularly to kind of, get out a lot of my tension and allow myself to like be at a pretty low baseline. So even if something does happen, it doesn't tip me over the edge. Making like really clear lifestyle choices. So having like a really solid routine where it's like, this is the time I'm supposed to wake up. This is what I do on Mondays. This is what I do on Tuesdays. This is my free time. So I use a technique they call time blocking, which means that my day feels quite structured. So I don't just feel like I'm floating around and I'm still late to things. I still forget things, but I'm able to manage it a lot more. Visual cues. So I use, my calendar is full up of all the stuff I need to do. So I get constant reminders. I use fidget toys whenever I need to sit still for a while. I have sticky notes everywhere with like stuff that I need to remember. And then, in terms of just managing my impulsivity, the meditation and the exercise kind of helps resolve that. And definitely going to therapy, like speaking out, talking about what's happening, getting like active responses. Because sometimes when you're in your own head, you maximize what's happening, but sometimes speaking it out and getting someone to kind of reflect what's going on, you're able to find solutions to what feels like a huge problem. Or even just being able to be understood. I think it releases some of that tension. So,
Thank you so much. And I just have to ask you this question. So being Black and having ADHD and dyslexia, I know we've spoken about how it's been for you, but on the plus side, you went for the assessment and now you're thriving and you've had your organization called ADHD Babes. I just want to say to our listeners and our viewers, ADHD Babes, please follow her on Instagram. Amazing support group. I did just ask Vivienne, obviously a question come up about support, and you felt so well, or can I say that you were the support you got was through your support network. So it is exactly how it's spelled, ADHD Babes. It is what it is, And what I love about it is that it's pink and it's cream and pink, so you can't miss it. It's right there and it's in your face. And follow Vivienne and join the support group. Ask questions. A lot of people have come to you and have got the right help and support that they needed. So as a result of you being diagnosed with ADHD, you then thought, right, I'm going to do something about it. Tell us a bit. Tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit more about ADHD Babes and why you think it's one of the best organizations for Black women.
I'm a bit biased. So the partner I was with at the time, again, they were so supportive, and they were really encouraging. So we'd go to a lot of ADHD support groups in London. They'd go on like all these online forums, and they just weren't very diverse. I was the youngest person there. I was the only person of color. And I was complaining about that. I was like, I feel misunderstood. Like, I feel like, it's not very diverse. And it was like, why don't you make your own? I was like, that's a good point. Okay, fine, I will. So I made a Facebook group, and I just remember going on different groups, saying, guys, I'm going to start this group for Black women with ADHD. If anyone's got it, please join. And people started joining. I was like, oh my God, there's more of us. So that was great. That was building very naturally, very slowly. And then a year into that, we moved onto a WhatsApp group where we was like, okay, we're going to be accountable to each other. We can just check in. And then slowly, that also started to grow. And then last year during the lockdown, one of the members suggested that we start doing Zoom sessions because, everyone was isolated. We're all indoors. And again, that just started to grow. It started with 3 of us. And then, I started sharing it on Twitter. Random people started saying, oh, can I join the WhatsApp group? Can I jump on the call? And then I finished my master's in September. And I thought, actually, this could go public now. We're starting to build attraction. There's a big demand for like people wanting to be in this space. So let's try and, make it public. So I called 2 of the girls who first joined the WhatsApp group and we had a discussion about it, and we decided to launch in October. And then from there, we just started selling out every support session, and then adding on more and more events, more and more engagement sessions. We've opened up a Discord now that's got over 200 members. And our following's grown as well on social media. We've got a mailing list that's about to go out, but right now we've got like over 300 people ready for the mailing list. So yeah, it's just really grown, really grown.
That's really, that's so amazing. And I'm so proud of the work you're doing, Vivienne, because you're very young. You started young. You didn't wait as long as, as old as me to start something. You started very, very young, and it's going to grow, and it's going to be really, really successful.
Thank you.
And I'm so proud of the work you're doing. Now, we mentioned Black women. Of course, you also support Black non-binary people. So, anyone watching, please do get in contact with Vivienne, ADHD Babes. I think she's very active on more Instagram, though, isn't it, than it is on LinkedIn.
I always forget to log into LinkedIn.
Yeah. And is there a fee? Is there Is there a fee? And does people have to pay?
No, so the support group is free. We have we always have concession free tickets for all our events, because we do like events with psychologists, and we do like yoga, and we do creative writing workshops. So we always have concession, and then we have the full price. But for the support group, it's always free, or you can donate. So hopefully when we get funding, everything will be free. But at the moment, we're unfunded, and we're just running on donations. So we have to price on.
Excellent. So there's a lovely message from Sharon. Sharon is a dyslexia assessor. She's also a teacher. Cool. She's been doing it for many years. She had excellent work, Vivienne. Really excellent. We're so proud of you, Vivienne, for the work that you're doing in the Black community, as well as within the community in general. A bit more messages, a bit more questions coming in. If our producer would put all that up, we'll be able to read it. I think someone dropped a message about age, something to do with 2030. And then
yes, so there's no age range.
Part of my dyslexia.
Yeah, so it's just 18 plus. I don't have enough in place in terms of safeguarding for like people under 18. But 18 plus. We've got people in the group who are in their 50s and 60s and just got diagnosed. So there's no age range. Yeah.
Wow. Do you know what? It's really strange with a hidden condition like dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD. Listen, because it doesn't it manifests itself in its own way, and it's individualized, isn't it? Everybody's so different that if we're not careful, we'll brush it under the carpet. And once it's brushed under the carpet, lots of issues can come out of that. And I know I'm talking from experience with my dyslexia and dyspraxia and so forth. Now, just to say that Katia, who joined us earlier, I will be in touch with a couple of contacts. There's a couple of contacts on LinkedIn that maybe I can connect you with, as well as joining ADHD Babes. Thank you for live. Congratulations for the initiative. That's from Katia.
Thank you.
I think Lois joined us. Lois joined us from USA, and I think she did drop a comment. Well thought out. Excellent. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Vivienne. Thank you, Vivienne.
Thank you.
It's been absolutely amazing and really phenomenal. Marcia Bennett, so many resourceful tips. Put my tongue in today. Can't speak properly. And that's really amazing. Now, please, Vivienne, continue doing what you're doing. Our community need the work you're doing. It's so important that you stand tall and give the information out there, and people can find the right support that they need to be able to thrive. Loretta said, fantastic discussion and so informative. Take us to implement in mass. Oh, it's a teacher.
I love that.
Perhaps it's a teacher.
Yeah, I guess so.
So that would be really great. Live shows like this is it's great. You can really play it back in the class, play it back to the children, to schools, to board of governors, whoever they might be, just to kind of get the help that people need. But just before we go, Vivienne, now you are a celebrity. You appeared on The Voice, didn't you? And you sang your heart out.
I did sing my heart out.
You sang your heart out, and honestly. And again, Will.i.am have got ADHD. I mean, Will.i.am's got ADHD. So, and look where he is. He's done really well with his career. So, it shouldn't really stop one from achieving. I just want to say that if you have been diagnosed with ADHD, even if you feel you've got the condition dyslexia, ADHD, dyspraxia, keep following your dreams, because, creativity is the key for us. And I was doing a little bit of research on you, Vivienne. I thought, Vivienne was on A Voice. I'm speaking to someone very famous today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vivienne, for your time. Thank you for everything. Just before we go, Is there any tip that you want to give to our listeners, our viewers? 1 or 2 tips of something that is really sort of important that we can walk away with today?
Yeah, I think firstly, always believe that change is possible, because I think that's been the thing that's pushed me through, because there's been points where I've just literally been on the verge. Even last year when I was doing my master's, with all the diagnosis, I was still so close to dropping out on 2 different occasions. So yeah, just believing that actually change is possible, like things can change, things can improve, and then going and seeking the help that you deserve. Sometimes the help doesn't come straight away. Sometimes it does feel like a bit of an obstacle, but I think just always having that end goal in mind, that actually it is possible for me to do this. I just need to get through that door. And it's just a damn shame that the doors are so many. But yeah, just really have that faith and belief in yourself that you can pull yourself through that system. And then I guess, yeah, secondly, like be the what's the word? Like craft your environment to accommodate yourself. Like I started with my room, like I've made my room so accommodating for self. Like I've got a light dimmer, I've got incense burning all the time, I've got my music available with a speaker, it's surrounded by plants and pictures, like just so when I come to my room I feel a sense of peace. And I've tried to do that, start with my room and then expand it, so I spend a lot of time with people that are really accommodating of who I am. I work in a field that I actually enjoy and gives me I've got access to work, so I get support at work through the government for my diagnosis. But yeah, I work in mental health, which is what I really enjoy, I'm passionate about. And then yeah, I make time for my music and things that I really enjoy, that I'm passionate about. So just really be intentional about the world that you craft around yourself. Like there's people I distance myself from, because even though I've got love for them, they don't accommodate the life that I want for myself. They don't hold space for me in a way that makes me feel at peace and feel seen and understood. So just like be really encouraged that you can create a world that accommodates you. And that's the problem with society, that it doesn't accommodate neurodiverse people. Like we are not the problem, the lack of access is the problem. So what we can do is try and craft that for ourselves while we're trying to build the bigger society that does it anyway. So just really have belief in that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Now, normally our show finishes at in 45 minutes, but today we've gone a little bit over. Maybe we apologize to being a little bit over. But last question is coming from Ini, and Ini said, "Thank you for this needed discussion. How do we join ADHD babes? Should we connect with you on social media? How do we join?"
Yeah. So follow us on social media. If you want to join our mailing list, go on our social media and our link tree. We've got the mailing list sign up and the Discord chat sign up. At the moment, we don't have our full membership access available. So what you can do is just be on our platform. So join the Discord, join the mailing list, and then follow us on Eventbrite. So when we put out the support group, you'll get an email to say the tickets are out, because they sell out quite quickly. But then if you're on our social media, you'll also see when we post, say that tickets are coming out at 6 o'clock, XYZ. So yeah, follow us on social media and get involved. And then once we have our full membership listing, then people on the mailing list will get that information first.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And also HY Dyslexia, anything to do with dyslexia, please do connect with us. We have 3 different workshops going at the moment. We've got Create Your Future with Dyslexia, which is absolutely free for London-based. Anyone in London boroughs can access that. We've also got study skill support for anyone in the boroughs, again, on all the London boroughs. We serve all across London. And of course, we've got Lambeth, which is Black Thrive, Lambeth, who is supporting our live show today. We're also doing a workshop with them, or shall I say, we've been funded to do a workshop. And you can get a free dyslexia assessment worth £420 for the Black community. So if you're Black and dyslexic, do definitely drop us an email at team@hydyslexia.org.uk. Wonderful. Now, we have to bring the show to an end. Otherwise, you and I will sit here forever and talk forever, because we're both passionate about what we do. Vivienne, thank you so much. Do stay there. When we finish, obviously, don't go as yet, because we go back in the studio and have a little chat before you go. I want to say thank you to our viewers. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you to the sponsors. Thank you to our producer, Yola, who makes this show possible. And thank you for everyone for really engaging on this live show. Have a wonderful week. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.